Hi guys, me again. Talking yet again about Knight's Beach down in Dunville. This time the topic is, you're going to find this one really silly. It's 2019 versus 2020. So I've done a little calendar up here for you. I hope you can see it. But so here we are, the 2019 camping season at Knight's Beach. It's May 2019, June, July, August, September, October 2019. Now after October comes November 2019 and December 2019 right through until April of 2020. Happy New Year. That is the 2019-2020 winter storage. And if you were to actually look on your rental agreement with Knight's Beach, it doesn't matter really what year you look at, but here using this example, you'll find that November 2019 through April 2020 actually falls on the same agreement as your 2019 camping season agreement. The reason being is that during this time you paid the price, I think it was $600, doesn't matter, but that's when you paid for winter storage. That's the winter after your camping season. So basically 2020 at Knight's Beach, or 2021 or 2022, it doesn't really matter. The year of 2020 doesn't really start until May of that year. That's when it starts. There's your camping season starts there. I don't know the exact day of the month, but that's when your camping season starts. And that's what your agreement is for, from that period through, in this case, until 2021 at the end of your winter storage season, assuming you've bought the winter storage. Okay, so it's simple enough. Makes sense. It is a seasonal park, so it makes sense. It was a very popular declaration made by the park and its lawyer at the time, Robert Wasserman, that she signed a contract that said no attarooms, too bad. So let me just describe that. Here's what happened. So as you know, Karen bought the trailer and leased the lot. But to be specific, she bought the trailer from Paul Osborne through Knight's Beach Resort, acting as the broker, and she took over Paul Osborne's 2019 contract or lease for the property. Effectively, under Ontario law, that makes her a subtenant. This was even borne to proof by the fact that she reimbursed. She wrote a check to reimburse Paul Osborne for the portion of the lease that he had already paid for 2019, plus the common shared expenses. All those numbers were worked out by Edward Wasserman. Now, Knight's Beach refused to supply a copy of that lease, despite under Ontario contract law, they are required to. But they didn't. They didn't want to. Felt no need to. So then we come back to the old subject of Marlene had said Karen could build an attaroom, which is disputed by Marlene, of course. Marlene told Karen to submit a drawing for that attaroom to get approval, also disputed by Marlene. Karen submitted the plan, which I will submit as part of my court documents, because I'm the one who drew the plan, so it's on my computer. Marlene, which of course she'll deny, told Karen, when Karen was handing her this plan to get the approval, Marlene said to Karen, "You need to sign a 2020 contract Otherwise, I won't be able to get you approval. And Karen said, well, that's kind of weird. I mean, it's not 2020 yet. And she said, it doesn't matter. They need that. And when Karen explained that to me, told me that story, I said, well, maybe what they're doing is they just want to make sure they've got you nailed down for a couple of seasons. They're going to get money out of you. Maybe that's all they're doing. I don't know. Maybe it's all just innocent. And of course, it turned out it wasn't. So Karen signed that contract, and then very shortly after that, I think within hours, her request to build an attic room was denied. The explanation was attic rooms are not allowed. You signed the contract. And here has been my argument to that all along, which always falls on deaf ears. Let's go back to my little drawing up here. I'm going to zoom in on this a little bit. Oh, let's see if that'll come on now. There we go. So, this is Paul Osborne. Until this point, here, when it's Karen. So Karen bought this trailer and took over this lease very late July, really the beginning of August. So you can see there was still fully half of the season left over. 1, 2, 3. Let me just write that out for you. 1, 2, 3 months. 4, 5, 6 months. So Karen was in possession of this lot and this trailer for fully half of the 2019 camp season. And if we take in the winter storage season, then it's even more than half. But let's just take the summer season. So it was in August of 2019 that Karen requested to, one, I'm going to have to lower that camera again, sorry. Permission to build. 2, actual construction. And 3, to use. All in 2019. 2019. It's pretty simple. But what they've been flashing in our faces is the 2020 contract that Karen signed. 2020 contract says no attic rooms. She signed it, too bad she can't have an attic room. And I'm saying, well, that's fine. In 2020, she's not requesting in 2020 to build an attic room. She's requesting in 2019 to build an attic room. So it's a pretty simple point that I'm making, is the fact that she bought this place in 2019. She believed in 2019 through what she was told that she could have an attic room, she could construct it. She could construct it in 2019. They suddenly pull out a 2020 rule and say, nope, we're not allowing it. They don't give an explanation either on the 2020 of why you can no longer have attic rooms. They just say you can't have them anymore. But that's kind of the Watchman attitude, is it's our park, our rules, tough shit, live with it. So I'm going to, I can make an assumption or a partial assumption. When I explain this to a judge, I'm sure he'll understand this whole calendar issue, because it's really not an issue. It's pretty straightforward. So I don't expect that to be a big deal. And I can make my full assumption of why the park did what they did and why they had Karen sign a 2020 agreement and why they did not allow her. I'm going to just say why they didn't allow her to build an attic room. Because the rest of what I want to say, Barry's going to call defamation. So I will save that part of it for court on my assumption why the change. Now, part of that assumption I can make is purely 100% fact, And the fact of it is the Haldeman Building Department had been requesting, shall we say, from Knights Beach that any type of construction stop and that building permits had to be obtained for all these attic and decks and all the construction that was going on at the park. And of course, they couldn't get. There was no way to obtain building permits for the park because it first had to be approved by the Long Point Conservation Authority, which was not going to approve it. They were not going to give the go-ahead for construction in the park on the waterfront like that. Not for the trailer park the way it's set up. They would have to start a whole new process to get that approved. I'm not saying it's not possible, but the amount of headaches and cost and time involved for, say, one trailer and one attic would have been prohibitive. But the pressure from Haldeman for the fact that there was a lot of illegal structures on the Knights Beach property, as there still are, I think the pressure from that is what caused them to change the rules about attic rooms. But the rest of it, why they should have made what they could have or should have said to clients, that part we'll just save that part for court. Now, when it comes to my point about the Haldeman Building Department, I already have I've already had the conversation with the manager of the building department there, and she's explained to me the outstanding warnings given to the park. But further from that, and sent directly from Mr. Yellen, of course, is after the storms that happened in the fall of 2019-2020, where a lot of the decks were wiped out. That proved the whole situation right there, that most of those decks were illegal. They had to be gotten rid of and so on and so forth. Work orders were put against all of those. People were not allowed to enter their properties until it had been remedied and so on. So none of that's in dispute. But that whole scenario drops back to the attic rooms as well. And so basically the attic rooms that are built in the park to this day, although they have not created a problem like the way the storms took the decks down, the attic rooms have not fallen down. They haven't hurt anybody or anything like that. So at the moment, basically Haldeman is just turning a blind eye to it, to be nice guys, and letting people have their attic rooms and just ignore it. But at the same time, the park has been told don't do any more. Enough is enough. So some people like to call that grandfathering it, but it really isn't grandfathering it. It's really just turning the other cheek and saying, well, we're just going to ignore it for now. But if a problem ever comes up, that's going to change. So anyway, that's where we are with this one. The real point in this one was just the simple fact of trying to define the difference between 2019 and 2020.